Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Greater odds again. Wanted to make a video today, kind of talk about how to learn about Thelema and give you some resources. You know, I know I've talked about book recommendations in the past. I want to give some more book recommendations, some other recommendations, and talk about, you know, what I think is a good way to really start learning the system a little more in depth than what, you know, I've talked about a lot for beginners. If you guys have been following me and have gone through the videos like I've suggested, you ought to be getting to a point now where you're ready to learn some more advanced things than just what I've talked about here, for the most part at least. Or at least to go a little more in depth beyond the practices and the basic philosophy. Yeah, I shaved my facial hair. This girl I've been talking to and hanging out with wanted to see it, so I shaved it off. She likes it a lot better. Asked me to do a poll on Facebook, and it seems like a lot of people like it a lot better, so who knows, I may keep it this way for a while, we'll see. So before we get started, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for me and like the video to help it get pushed out to more people. Leave me a comment below. You know, let me know what you think about these recommendations, if you're already familiar with them or whatever. In the description below, there's a link to the Patreon. Consider supporting the channel by joining the Patreon. All right. You know, there's also a link to the t-shirts. There's t-shirts and coffee cups and stuff on the site. If you click on the link, or if you click on it below the video, either way, it opens a little YouTube applet. You have to click all the way through that to get to the actual Teespring site, and then you'll be able to see all the designs. There's men's t-shirts, women's t-shirts, there's coffee cups, multiple designs, there's hoodies. So consider doing something to support the channel. All that money goes into a stock account to try to build a retirement for me. So if you appreciate the work I've done, consider supporting the channel in one way or another, all right? So, you know, I've talked a lot about basics, and I've gone a little bit more in depth in some of these more recent videos. But, you know, I haven't listed a whole lot of resources, and I'm not going to list a whole lot today, okay? But there are some resources that I'd like to point you to. First of all, you know, let's talk a little bit about study versus practice, okay? I think personally that practice is more important. Now, I'm not saying that study is not important, but what I don't want people to do is I don't want you to get on this track of looking at things from a super intellectual perspective and only reading about Thelema without actually delving into the practices, okay? You can call it magic, you can call it self-brainwashing, you can call it whatever you want, but the practices are the more important part of Thelema, okay? So think about, what is the first word in the law? Do what thou wilt. Okay, not think or read or mentally masturbate, okay? Do. So you need to be working through the material when it comes to the practices, Liber E, Liber O, the rituals, the journaling, the, you know, doing resh, saying will, all these things you need to be bringing into your life to begin to incorporate that, even if it's for, you know, a year. And then maybe you decide that that's not for you, but you should be doing the practices so that you get a real understanding of, you know, their effects or lack thereof for you, you know, and the usefulness of a lot of these practices that aren't necessarily rituals, you know, and how learning about yourself through those practices helps to transform you. Okay, so study is important, but don't let yourself get bogged down thinking that you need to learn more and learn more before you start, or else you will never start. At some point, you just have to go ahead and start doing the practices, okay? And I recommend that. I also would like to say that a lot of people get bogged down with, Enochian's dangerous and Goetic theurgy is dangerous and all these different types of ceremony. They're worried about, starting before they're too knowledgeable. And Crowley says in a lot of places that if you let that happen and you let yourself be fearful and you let yourself, overthink it, you may never start. So just jump right in, dive right in and get started. It's the best way to learn about it, okay? Now, some resources that I'd like to point you to, okay? One of them that I don't think I mentioned very much on the channel is a podcast called Speech in the Silence. Speech in the Silence. Just Google it, you'll find it. The podcast is no longer creating new episodes. There are a lot of episodes there, and they have lots of lectures and readings and all kinds of stuff like music and just, it's kind of in a way for those of you who don't have OTO near you or don't have a group near you where you can get actual involvement with other magicians on a personal face-to-face level. It's kind of a way for you to get a lot of these lectures and stuff like that you would get out of being in the OTO. So Speech in the Silence, I really highly recommend that podcast, okay? I'm friends with the guys who used to do it, and I did some readings and they used one of my songs for the intro, but this isn't about that. This is about the fact that there's a lot of good content in those podcasts and you should go listen to them. David Shoemaker also did some spots on there in the beginning called Living Thelema and continued those after. And then his book, Living Thelema, is a good place for you to perhaps look to read his material. Now, I haven't talked about that one in the past, but it is good. Obviously, I've talked about Lon Milo Duquette's work. I think that a lot of that is really valuable, and you should be reading that stuff as well. We're talking about stuff that's not Crowley right now. Another thing that I would recommend is to read some biographies of Crowley. You've got Confessions, which is Crowley's autobiography. Then you've also got several other biographies. Some are better than others. Some are specifically focused, like Secret Agent 666 is focused on certain aspects of Crowley's life. Then you've got something like Richard Kaczynski's book, Perdurabo, which is much more of a dry, just biography on Crowley's life. It was a little bit dry for me because I don't just read for pleasure or whatever, so it was a little bit dry for me. I do own it, but I did not finish it. But everybody raves and raves and raves about Perdurabo because the level of information and research that went into that book is astonishing. So you should check that out, okay? And check out some other biographies of Crowley. And if you can, get a copy of Confessions. That's Crowley himself discussing a lot of that stuff. Okay, now when we move beyond stuff that wasn't written by Crowley, we go to Crowley. I made some specific recommendations of Liber ABA, Magic Book 4, of Gems from the Equinox, etc. I want to also talk a little bit more about some of the books that are not really my favorites. Liber Aleph or Aleph, the Book of Wisdom or Folly. A lot of people, that's their favorite book, and it's never really been mine, okay? But I will say about Liber Aleph that there are a lot of really short things that Crowley tried to really just focus in and say it, in small passages and stuff throughout that book. And although there are some things in there that, that rub me the wrong way, some particular things about women and stuff like that, there is a lot of valuable stuff in that book, okay? So Liber Aleph, also the Book of Lies, is one that kind of breaks down things by gematria or numbers. The numbers of the chapters represent the chapter represents like a kind of a description of that numeral. And the reason I don't normally recommend the Book of Lies is because there's a lot of language in there that's very symbolic. And I've talked before about how there are multiple layers of meaning to Crowley's writing, and that is a really rich inside of the Book of Lies, and therefore sometimes is easy to misunderstand what's being said. So I don't recommend it to new people a lot, but it is a fantastic book, and I do recommend that, when you get better at looking past the words themselves to the actual meanings and the underlying symbolism and stuff like that, the Book of Lies is a really great book, okay? And then also, Magic Without Tears is a really good way to kind of get an understanding of where Crowley ended up, okay? Like, he said all of these things in his youth and made all of these writings throughout his life. But Magic Without Tears was written, like, towards the end of his life. He was an older man when he wrote those letters. And so I think that it's a really good way to kind of have perspective of where Crowley, what all this other stuff that you read that Crowley wrote when he was in his 20s and 30s or whatever, and then to see what, with Magic Without Tears, to be able to see what he then thought when he was 70, you know what I mean, when he was 60, 70. So I think that Magic Without Tears, bolstered by all the other things that you're reading, kind of gives you a little bit of a perspective of, where he started and where he ended up. Now, another thing I want to mention when we're talking about how to learn this stuff, okay, is that my experience of learning about this stuff is heavily steeped in OTO, okay? So basically from the very beginning of me learning about Thelema, with a big break there kind of in the middle, I was surrounded by others and able to listen to the things that they talked about and then go look at them on my own, or bounce ideas off of other people and listen to others bounce ideas off of each other. And a lot of these things, like, it really helped me to know what to look at and know where to look and what I wanted to look into. And I realized that a lot of you guys don't have that. You're not involved with the OTO. So I wanted to say that a lot of times my perspective, you have to take it from that angle. You have to understand that, all of these things that I know about Thelema, not only did it take me many, many years to come to these understandings and conclusions, but I also had the benefit of face-to-face hanging out with other Thelemites for many years. And so when I talk about how the interaction that you get from joining OTO is pretty much irreplaceable, like, I'm serious about that. You know what I mean? You're not going to find online an experience like that. You can join groups about Thelema and stuff, but a lot of times they just devolve into arguments, and interacting with people on the internet, we all know, is totally different than interacting with people when you're sitting at a table having a meal or face to face. You know what I mean? And so that does kind of skew my perspective when I try to talk about how to learn about this stuff, because I don't really have any other experience other than all of this face-to-face communication that I've had for all these years. So if you can, try to get in a place where you can at least spend a while, like, involved in something like that. It really helps to round your understanding and help you to kind of give you ideas of things that you want to learn more about and stuff, having conversations with people. If you can get to that point, then you should, okay? If not, just realize that the interactions that you get with people on the internet, a lot of those people don't really know much about Thelema, and they present themselves as if they do. There are some people in, say the Thelema group on Facebook, there are a lot of people in there who do know a lot about Thelema, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of seasoned, hardcore, years and years Thelemites, okay, don't engage in those groups and stuff. So a lot of the people that you're exposed to are new people. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And personally, I don't understand why people with my level of years in the business, so to speak, don't engage with the groups. I do understand that all the arguing and is kind of frustrating at times, but I feel like more longtime Thelemites should be trying to get out there and help the new people and help to point out things when all of these people in these groups are saying things that are incorrect, or are coming from somebody who's been doing things for a year, or it disappoints me that a lot of people disengage from Thelema on the internet, because I think that the internet is a powerful tool that it should be used to help new people learn, rather than something that you should just pull away from and say, fuck it, that's too much trouble, which I think happens a lot with people, with Thelemites on the internet. So anyway, I think I've rambled on enough. Hopefully this information has been helpful to you. I probably left some things out and stuff like that. If you have some other recommendations for people, please leave them in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, and consider supporting the channel by joining the Patreon or picking up a t-shirt or coffee cup or something. And I appreciate everyone's support. I appreciate all the patrons very much, guys. You don't know how much I appreciate the support. And I'll see you next time. Love is the law. Love under will.